Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Satwanti Kapoor from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today I shall be speaking on the module Case Study Method from the paper Research Methods and Fieldwork. The learning objectives of these modules are to learn what is case study and distinction from case history, identify the application of case study, to discuss how to plan case study and to understand the advantages and limitations of case study. First of all, we will discuss briefly about case study. That is, what is a case study? A case is a social unit with a deviant behavior and may be an event, problem, process, activity, program of a social unit. The unit may be a person, a family, an institution, a cultural group, a community, or even an entire society. Kothari 2014. Case study, therefore, is an intensive investigation of the particular unit under consideration. It is extensively used in psychology, education, sociology, anthropology, economics, and political science. It aims at obtaining a complete and detailed account of a social phenomena or a social event of a social unit. In case study, data can be collected from multiple sources by using any qualitative method of data collection like interviews, observation, and it may also include documents, artifacts, etc. Case study method is a type of data collection that goes in depth understanding rather than breadth. Case study can be descriptive as we observe and write in description, as well as it can also be an exploratory, that is, we wrote what was said. Pierre Guillaume Frederick Laplace, 1855, a mathematician and natural scientist, is considered as the founder of case study method as he used it for the first time in his publication. Case study is certainly one popular form of qualitative analysis involving careful and complete observation of a case. Definitions of case study methods. Case study has been defined differently by different scholars from time to time. Some of them are presented below. Young, 1984. Case study is a comprehensive study of a social unit, be it a person, a group of persons, an institute, a community, or a family. Grude and Holt, 1953. It is a method of exploring and analyzing the life of a social unit. Cooley, 2007. Case study presents our perception and gives clear insight into life directory. Bogardas, 1925. The method of examining especially and in detail a given situation. Robson in 1993. A strategy for doing research which involves an empirical investigation of a particular contemporary phenomena within its real life context using multiple sources of evidence. So critical analysis of these definitions reveal that case study is a method of minute and detailed study of a situation concerning a social unit in an intensive and comprehensive manner in order to understand the personal as well as hidden dimension of human life. Now, characteristics of case study. The main characteristics of the case study are descriptive study. The data collected constitute description of psychological processes and events and of the context in which they occurred. The main emphasis is always on the construction of verbal description of behavior or experience, but rarely quantitative data may be collected. In short, case study is more of a qualitative method rather than quantitative method. Next is high level of details are provided. Next, the behavior pattern of the concerned unit is studied directly, wherein efforts are made to know the mutual interrelationship of causal factors. Narrowly focused. Typically, a case study offers a complete and comprehensive description of all facets of a social unit, be it a single individual or maybe a social group. Next, often the case study focuses on a limited aspect of a person, such as their psychopathological symptoms. Now, combines objectives and subjective data. Researchers may combine objective and subjective data. Both the data are regarded as valid data for analysis. It enables case study to achieve in-depth understanding of the behavior and experience of a single unit. Process-oriented. The case study method enables the researchers to explore and describe the nature of processes which occur over time. In contrast to the experimental method, which basically provide a stilled snapshot of processes, case study continued over time, like for example, the development of language in children over time. Differences between case study and case history. The case study method helps retaining the holistic and meaningful characteristics of a real life event, such as individual life cycles, small group behavior, etc. It is like a case history of a patient. As a patient goes in the doctor with some serious disease, the doctor records the case history. Analysis of case history helps in the diagnosis of the patient's illness. Although most of us confuse case study and case history to be the same, however, there exists a difference between the two terms. They are being used in many disciplines and allow the researcher to be more informative of people and events. A case study is a research method used to investigate an individual, a group of people, or a particular phenomena. The case study has been used in many disciplines, especially in social science, anthropology, sociology, psychology, and political science. A case study allows the researcher to gain an in-depth understanding of the topic. To conduct a case study, the researcher can use a number of techniques. For example, observation, interviews, usage of secondary data such as documents, records, etc. It usually goes on for a longer period because the researcher has to explore the topic deeply. The case study method was first used in ethical medicine so that the doctor has a clear understanding of the history of the patient. Various methods can be used in a case study. For example, a psychologist use observation to observe the individual, use interview method to broaden the understanding. To create a clear picture of the problem, the questions can be directed not only to the individual on whom the case study is being conducted, but also on those who are related to the individual. A special feature of case study is that it produces a qualitative data that are rich and authentic. Unlike the case study that refers to a method, a case history refers to a record of an individual or even a group. Case histories are used in many disciplines such as psychology, sociology, medicine, psychiatry, etc. It consists of all the necessary information of the individual. In medicine, a case history refers to a specific record that reveals the personal information, medical condition, the medication that has been used, and special condition of the individual. Having a case history can be very beneficial in treatment of disease. However, a case history does not necessarily have to be connected to an individual. It can even be of an event that took place. The case history is recording that narrates a sequence of events. Such a narrative allows the researcher to look at an event in retrospect. Techniques used for case studies. The technique of case study include observation. It is a systematic data collection approach. Researchers use all of their senses to examine people in natural setting or naturally occurring situations. Observation of a field setting involves prolonged engagement in a setting or social situation. Interviews. It is questioning and discussing to a person for the purpose of an evaluation or to generate information. Now, secondary data. Secondary data refers to data that was collected by someone through secondary sources. Documents. Any writing that provides information, especially information which is of official in nature. Records. Anything that provides permanent information which can rely on or providing an evidence officially. Sources of data for case study. In case study, information may be collected from various sources. Some of the important sources include life histories, personal documents, letters and records, biographies, information obtained through interviews, observation. Type of case studies. The following are the type of case studies according to Graham Gibbs, 2012. One is individual case study. This study was first done by Shaw Clifford in 1930. In individual case study, life of a particular person, his activities and his totalities were accompanied. Set of individual case studies. Group of persons that practice different culture was studied. As for instance, those live in rural area and those living in urban area, there will be different cases between them. Community study. In community studies, it may include hundreds of people from a community that picked upon for some reason. Social group studies. Group of people that define their social position, for example, a group of musicians or a group of drug takers. Now, studies of organization and institution. Study for a particular organization or an institution. Studies of events, roles, and relationships. Similar to individual case study, but more focused on events, roles, and relationship that involved. For example, we can take the role of a housewife. How do we plan a case study? The following points are required to plan a case study, such as conceptual framework. Based on the theory, it displays the important features of a case study and show relationship between features. Research questions consist of conceptual framework which is consisting of focused and answerable questions. Research design planned out of what to include or what not to include before data collection. Methods and instruments. An appropriate method should be employed to answer the research question and using appropriate instruments. Analysis of data and interpretation. Collected information should be analyzed using statistical tools and interpret the findings, incorporating the ideas and knowledge gathered during data collection. Now, advantages and limitations. Advantages of case study. The following are some of the advantages of case study. 1. It facilitates intensive study and in-depth analysis of a social unit which helps in contradicting established theory. Second, in-depth and comprehensive information are collected through this method which helps in stimulating new research. Third, it is suitable for collecting data pertaining to sensitive areas of a social phenomena. Next, it helps to collect detail regarding the diverse habits, traits and qualities of the unit under investigation, Kothari 2014. Next, the researchers can understand better the social change of different facets of a social unit every now and then. This study can be a means to understand the part of a social unit because of its emphasis of historical analysis. The researcher can use any type of methods like interview, questionnaires, documents, self-reports, etc. Case study enables to generalize the knowledge using the information collected. A real personal experience can be recorded which enlighten and reveal the real man's inner self. The data obtained through case study is useful for formulation of hypotheses and preparation of schedules and questionnaires for such type of study and for further research, Kothari 2014. Next, it helps in enhancing her experience, ability and skills in content analysis of the data. It is useful for therapeutic and administrative purposes, particularly in diagnosis, treatment and therapy, etc. Limitations of case study. Such records could be open to errors due to faulty selection of case and inaccurate observations, Kothari 2014. There are chances of inaccuracy of the data as no uniform and standardized system of recording case history has been developed. Data collected from case study usually based on several assumptions which may not be very realistic at times. This method is mainly qualitative rather than quantitative. Hence, there may be question of subjectivity. Next is, it is very difficult to draw generalization on the basis of a few cases. Sampling is not possible in case studies as this method can be used only in a limited unit. Also, the information collected from case study is incomparable since each informant gives his/her own opinion. Therefore, replication is not possible. Since this method is fully based on the informant, sometimes the informant himself thinks that she have a full knowledge and the information given by them may include some fake information also. The investigator's bias might distort the quality of the case study, Kothari 2014. The case study is time consuming and costly in certain cases. This method cannot be effectively used in big and complex societies, Kothari 2014. Now, let us summarize this module. So, there are many techniques involved in data collection in social sciences. They could be case studies, they could be interviews, they could be group discussions, they could be observations. Like observations can be participant observation, or observation means from outside. Participant observation is when we participate in an event, and simple observation is when we stand on one side and see what all is happening. Similarly, in case study also, it's like you have a one-to-one interaction with a person and take in-depth information about a unit, about a person, group of people, an institution, etc. Case study is an important method employed for collection of qualitative data for an in-depth, intensive and comprehensive scientific study of a social unit, of a person, of an organization. This social unit can be an individual, can be a family, can be a community, can be a group, or even an entire society. In case studies, information on different units such as individual, community, social group, organization, and events is taken using appropriate techniques. And these techniques can be observation, as I spoke earlier, interviews, could be secondary data, which we gather from documents and records. These are used based on the objective of the research problem. Each research problem has different specific objectives. So you can have, based on your case study, one can have individuals. The objectives of a research problem can be manifold. These objectives can be just to understand a particular event, or to study the organization of a institution, or to study the detailed step in an event. The main source of data in case studies include life histories, personal documents, letters and records, also biographies. Information is obtained through interviews and observations. Case studies facilitate intensive study and in-depth analysis of a social unit contradicting established theory. It helps in contradicting established theory and stimulating new research. However, difficulties arise in case studies due to a number of reasons, which include inconsistency in data, not possible to replicate the findings. See, so objectivity is one which is missing, but when we compare the advantages of the data gathered in case studies, then we have to really forego in certain cases the objectivity of data collection, because our aim or our objective could be to have a very subjective information from different people about the event. Interviewing key and right informants is another important part of case studies. To interview the key and right informants depends on the expertise of the investigators. Constant monitoring of interaction between the theoretical issues being studied and collected data, and interpretation of the data needs to be carefully considered. Also, one has to take into account the ethical issues which does arise when we take interviews or any information on human beings. Thank you.